In this video, I'm going to take a look at some examples of technical proposals. In particular, I'm going to look at some templates and some sets of instructions that come from various professions, companies, institutions. These are all ones that I have found on the internet by doing a quick search for technical proposals and examples, or technical proposals and templates. So they're easily found online. And what that can do by taking a look at those is it can show me the writer of a technical proposal, not only what are the commonalities, in other words, what are the conventions of a technical proposal, but also taking a look at multiple examples can show me what's different about them and what would be specific to maybe a company that is asking for one, or I would write one for, or what's different by discipline or profession. So I'm going to start with this first one. This actually comes from Microsoft. And what we can see kind of quickly is just the layout, the design. Notice that it's essentially single spaced, or at most 1.5 space in between. These are not double spaced. Double spacing is something that's really for school, for academic papers, and in large part that's so that your professor can comment on that. We may see sections that have wider spaces in it, but that's not because this is a part of it's required to have all this space. Instead, it's to show us that there are sections that we're going to need to fill in. This set of instructions is telling us what those sections are. We, as the writer of that, would know we're going to collapse those spaces and work on design a little bit differently. So also taking a look at the layout, the structure, the design, we see that some parts of it have larger font. It's also in bold. Note that at the top of this page, this is what we would call a header. So a header gets inserted and then it will show up on every page afterward. So if we continue to scroll down, we see the same information on every single page. That's the header. We also can see at the bottom of the page, in this case, a page number. That information could be different, again, depending on what you're writing and for who. But inserting the page number in the footer means that the page numbers will be consecutively paginated and it's going to show up on every single page. So in addition to the header and the footer, we also have parts of the document that are called headings. And you can think of a heading like a mini title. It's a title that's for a particular section of a document. So these can serve a couple of different purposes. One is it can help divide particularly a very long document. It can help divide it into smaller chunks, something that's a little bit easier to manage. It also, or the use of headings can also help us skim through to get a sense of what different parts are about. And this is particularly useful in a document where I would need to skip around. I would need to go back and forth across pages. I want to be able to go backwards and find something pretty quickly. So using headings can help with that. They also can tell us what the section is about or what to expect in that particular section. So for example, here we have part 4 called the work plan. Already by looking at the title or this heading, I know that everything that goes in that section is going to be related to the work plan. And then if I go down to the next one, I can see there's a different heading, related research and development. So that's no longer about the work plan. And I can tell a lot of information just by looking at the headings. Something else to note in this particular example, as I scroll through a little bit, their instructions are in italics. So that's there to say these are instructions for how to put this thing together. You as the writer would not use all italics for your paragraphs. This is just there to emphasize. So you could use italics for emphasis, or for the title of a longer, like a book or something like that. But you want to think about the what you're doing to the font that makes it easier or difficult or more difficult to read. And in this case, again, it's just there as example to say, here's what you're doing in these particular sections, not you should write the whole thing in italics. So that's something to pay attention to. The last thing for this particular document that I'm drawing our attention to is in the instructions, we can see that they are starting with a verb that tells us what the content, well, most of the time, in this case, it's must describe, but the verbs are telling us, the writer of this text, what content has to go in these particular sections and how to write that content. So for example, in this section that's called part 5, we see the verb describe. So in this case, we're going to be giving detail. We're going to maybe give some observations, maybe what the thing looks like. We're going to cover maybe how long something would be, or what color it might be, all sorts of things that would describe it. And in this case, it's describing current or previous research and development. So in other words, it's here's what we've done, what that looks like, how long it took, who was involved. So anything that happened before that. If I come down to this next section, part 6, key personnel, etc., it says identify. So that means I'm going to name them and probably give some expertise. If I continue with the sentence, it says identify all key personnel. So that means every single person who is going to be involved. In this case, it's called phase 1. And here we have their expertise and what are their functions. So thinking about what your role is in a proposal, if you're a part of this, you're going to include yourself in there, but you're not going to say I'm this person. Instead, you put your name, your expertise, and what your role is. This is also where you should have already confirmed with other personnel, if you know specifically who you want to have involved, that they've agreed, that they've, maybe there's a contract or something, that they're listed there, and what their expertise and their functions, etc. So there's more information. Here's another verb, provide bibliographic information. If we continue to scroll down, discuss. There's a reason that one part says describe, one part says identify, one part says discuss. It's that those are different ways of conveying information. Those are different ways of writing. So don't make an assumption that everything is identifying or that everything is summarizing. Pay very close attention to what's being asked. If it's discussed, that means a lot of details are going to get put there. Description, what does it look like? Other sorts of features, perhaps, or characteristics. Identify means naming things and putting in other information that helps us know who and why those people are important, that kind of thing. So moving along to some other examples. Here is another one. This comes from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. This is a set of instructions that they have for technical proposals. We can see that they do have a header. It's not as informational as in some of the other examples, but they do have a header and they have a footer. In this case, they have pagination on the footer, and then they also have essentially title of the project or name of the proposer. Something else goes in the footer. If we look again at design, we see there are sections that are split apart. We have headings. It's single spaced with an extra space in between paragraphs. In this particular example, it's justified. So we have lined up on the left and lined up on the right. Everything's kind of squared off. We don't have indentations like a normal paragraph in an academic paper would have. If I go back to this Microsoft example, it's not justified in that it's got squared off on both sides, but we also note that there aren't indentations like a traditional college academic paper. The layout is a little bit different. As we go through other examples, we will make similar notations of what the layout looks like, the format. Scrolling down, we'll see that this one actually gives us a list of the contents that need to go in this kind of a technical proposal, and it splits it into 4 sections. But if we take a look again across various examples, all of them will have some kind of summary overall. So a summary of the project. There will be other parts of specific detail that have to go in there. So what are you proposing that you do? And at some point in there, there needs to be information about the qualifications, the certifications, the expertise of not only who is doing the proposing, but the personnel or who's involved. And we also will see in every single technical proposal, the plans, the specific plans, the step-by-step or the various components that lead to a deliverable, a concrete thing at the end, or a concrete practice at the end. These are not abstract. These are not sort of, it would be nice if everybody changed their mind. That's a different kind of writing. If we take a look further down, we have here in this example, there are some specific instructions for what this executive summary should look like in this type of technical proposal. And something I'm just going to note, here it says that the executive summary for this example should not exceed 10 single-sided pages. That should clue you in that technical proposals are long, complex, and very detailed. They should have a lot of information for the audience to be able to make decisions, for them to get a sense of the project, for them to think about budget, to think about people, to make sure that things are legally done. There's a lot that has to go in them. If we continue on down, we'll see other details about what goes in here. So in this case, it at the minimum must include the following. And so these are the things that absolutely have to be in this example of a technical proposal. Moving forward to one more example, here's one that is a template for designing a game that somebody would like to propose to a particular company. And here, once again, we have some design elements that tell us the difference between something that's an absolute, it has to stay in the document. In this case, they're using black font, and stuff that is example or instruction. And in this case, they're using a blue font. We have a cover page on this one, which we did not see on these other two, but we might see in other examples. And we have, in this case, a table of contents. So the table of contents will take us to different sections of the proposal document, and those different sections will have headings. Those are the small titles, the mini titles for the various sections. So in this case, the table of contents can actually point us to where to go, and then when we get there, we're going to see the details spelled out in the actual pages itself, in the paragraphs. Scrolling through this one, just taking a look at everything that is expected of this game to have before it can be proposed. So it's not just here's an idea and I want it to be, this is the name of the game and how I want it to be played. The details that have to go in something like this include not only what the rules are, but what the world that the game is in, what that looks like, what the interface is, so how the players are going to actually play it. Here's that in terms of the interface. The aesthetics, what does it look like? What are the visuals like? And in a real world example, it would be ideal to have a mock-up visual included so that that can be a part of the proposal itself. Taking a look at one last set of instructions, again, like the other ones we've looked at, these are detailed and complicated and quite long. But we also have similarities. We have overlap to what the sections include or the content that would be expected. And of course, overarching all of these, the content, once again, is detailed. It is providing a lot of information for the reader so that the reader can make choices about whether to approve the proposal or not. They can think about budget and so on. And if we take a look through what's here, we can see I'm going to click on this link that takes us to the instructions for what the proposal needs to actually look like. Like in other ones, we have to name who's going to be in it, the personnel, and here we have again those verbs. So describe the experience and qualifications of the people who are going to be in it. List the name of the principal, etc. List other things. List, and so in this section, we would include. There's going to be lots of lists. There's naming. There's inclusion of information that shows these people are qualified, and so on. In fact, there's even a section here that says resumes have to be included for the folks that are going to be working on this stuff. Continuing down, we also have statements. This is what the work is actually going to be. Here again is a verb. State the objectives. State the specific accomplishments you hope to achieve. Use as many subparagraphs, etc., right? So if we continue on down, describe in detail the methods you will use for the project. This is similar to any other proposal where you have to say, here's what I will do and how I will do it, or here's what my group will do and how we will do it. Here, it's very clear, describe in detail. So as you put one together, a simple bullet list of we're going to do these things isn't going to be enough. You're going to need to provide a lot more information, a lot more detail. I've skipped ahead just a little bit to point out one last thing in terms of conventions and other things related to the proposals. Here is a page out of a real existing proposal, which, by the way, is 240 pages long. Again, lots of detail. And this is one that's using images, graphics, the visuals to help convey information that's there. So it's not just color, it's not just headings, it's not just bold font. There are actual images, visuals, in many cases charts, graphs, tables, other things to not only help describe, but help convey information. So lots to put together to make a good proposal.